you're probably not taking full advantage of what your clutch has to offer, and here's why. We're gonna break down clutch skill level into 3 simple categories really fast: beginner, amateur, and expert. Beginner clutch users use it for shifting and accelerating from a standstill, pretty much it. Amateur clutch users will use it to shift, get going, and stop, but they also have the ability to use the clutch to navigate particular obstacles, lift that front tire up for that log, jab the clutch a little in a corner to spike the RPMs, different types of obstacles. The third level is an expert clutch user. An expert clutch user is going to do everything we just mentioned, but the difference is they're going to have what's called RPM awareness. By keeping 1 or 2 fingers on the clutch at all times, they're going to have this live connection with the motorcycle 100% of the time. At any moment, whether they're in the air, in a muddy section, in a corner, at any point in time, they always know exactly what the motorcycle's doing and can make fine adjustments because of this. It's like having a pulse on your motorcycle at all times. This really is the difference between amateur riders and expert riders. In this video, we're going to share with you 5 tips to help you get from that beginner amateur level to the expert skill level of using your clutch. Welcome back to the Ride with the Knights YouTube channel. My name's Josh. For those of you that are new here, on this channel, we talk everything off-road dirt bikes. We race them, we trail ride them, we work on them, and we share our experience with you. We also have an online course where we have compiled all of our experience and knowledge, all of the techniques and the skills that we have developed for riding for over 20 years. You can pick it up for as little as $20 a month. And in fact, this week only, we're offering a President's Day sale for 40% off. Click the link in the description, head over, get signed up, and we will see you inside the course. Let's go ahead now, move into our 5 tips to help you become an expert level clutch user. Tip number 1 is to understand RPM awareness. What is RPM awareness? It's simply being aware of the RPMs of your motorcycle, of the engine inside your motorcycle. As whether you ride a 2-stroke or a 4-stroke, when you give it gas, holding the clutch, the engine revs up. At different levels and ranges inside the RPMs, your motorcycle produces different amounts of power. If you have experience riding a 2-stroke, you'll know the power band window where you're getting the most power out of that motorcycle. 4-strokes have a much broader one. Either way, keeping the motorcycle within a certain range of RPM is going to help you get the most traction and produce the most power from the motorcycle. Depending on the obstacle, the terrain, the balance that you have at any given instance, you need a different combination of RPM and throttle application. The only way to do this in long motorcycle riding and to do it like an expert is to have instant feedback and instant control. By being aware of where the RPMs are, you're able to make adjustments immediately and respond in that exact moment. That's why RPM awareness is so important. It is your pulse on the motorcycle. Another really important reason why RPM awareness could be the difference between where you're at in your current skill level on a motorcycle and where you could be. So think of all of those little silly mistakes that you make on the motorcycle, whether it be tipping over in a corner, stalling it on a small, simple obstacle, or any other type of mistake similar to those. Chances are RPM awareness is contributing more to those mistakes than you're giving it credit. I encourage you to focus and be proactive about implementing this into your riding because it will help drastically with all of those small little mistakes that you're making on the motorcycle. Tip number 2 is to keep 1 or 2 fingers on the clutch at all times. This is a given. You've been taught this your entire riding career. Whether it's a single finger or 2 fingers, the point is to always have a finger on the clutch at all times. Tip number 1 was to understand RPM awareness. If you understand that, you're going to understand how important it is to always have a finger on the clutch. It baffles me sometimes when I hear of pro level riders, even in Supercross, that can navigate corners or whoops without having a finger on the clutch. I think that this is a huge weakness. I don't don't see any drawback at all to never not having a finger on the clutch. It always gives you feedback to where your engine's at, and it allows you at any moment to respond accordingly. Always keep at least 1 or 2 fingers. When I observe my own riding, the only time that I really don't actually have a finger on the clutch is if I am at full speed down a flat dirt road. That's about the only time. Any other time I'm riding an off-road dirt bike, I have 1 finger on the clutch. And even in the dirt road example, as soon as I spot an obstacle, I immediately cover the clutch. Or if I begin to decelerate, I cover the clutch. It's really important. Always keep at least 1 or 2 fingers on the clutch. I like to actually ride with my middle finger. This is a little bit unique to me. I would say most riders ride with their index finger on the clutch. However, I have developed a habit for whatever reason to ride a lot of the time with my middle finger. When that one fatigues, then I'll transition to the index finger. Most of the time, I keep a single finger on the clutch at all times. Tip number 3 is your clutch lever placement or position. So it starts actually with the handlebars. You'll notice that my handlebars are in a pretty neutral placement. They're actually kind of in line with the forks. And then we go and address the fork the clutch kind of angle. I like to run mine just a little bit below kind of parallel or totally flat. It's a very neutral setup. What's actually more important or more common these days to address is how far in you place your clutch lever on the handlebar. This actually affects your clutch control, I would say, even more. A lot of riders get that neutral placement first. Now let's address how far in. The farther in you push your lever, your finger is going to be placed more towards the outside of the lever, which is going to give you more leverage. And oftentimes, if you're using either your index or middle finger on the inside of your hand, it can sometimes put it in a little bit more comfortable position. Another thing that I like to note is if you are using the outside part of the lever, with each sort of degree of movement, you can actually have a more fine adjustment inside the clutch. For example, if I place my finger all the way on the inside of the clutch, pull it 1 inch, I may be, moving the clutch plates 40%. Whereas if I place my finger all the way on the outside of the clutch, move it 1 inch again, I may only be using the clutch 30%. So it allows you to have more fine adjustments. It's really up to personal preference. I wouldn't necessarily recommend deviating too much from a kind of neutral standard setup, but get your lever height where you like it and then address that inward and outward position on the handlebar. When adjusting your clutch position, it's also important to note that the sequence of grip, kill switch, lever, sometimes it may need to change. Sometimes you may need to rearrange your kill switch and where your lever mounts to the handlebar. Also, depending on which handlebars you run, if you run a type of handlebar that sweeps really early, you might not have as much room for clamping. The solution to that is run taller bar risers with a flatter bar, gives you more space for clamping. Either way, just be aware that it's okay to rearrange things, zip ties, all that, get it to some type of setting that's comfortable and promotes proper clutch use. Tip number 4 is clutch lever stiffness. This is a big one for me. Now, you have in off-road motorcycles 2 main types of clutches, hydraulic clutches and cable clutches. Depending on which manufacturer you're riding, your options may be different. Either way, choose a clutch that you like, but clutch stiffness is really important. A lot of riders are always addressing clutch stiffness from a comfort standpoint. They always want a lighter clutch pull because it's easier, it makes it more comfortable for long rides. This really just depends on your goals as a rider. If you're going out for 5+ hour trail rides and you are an expert level clutch user and you know that a lighter clutch is just going to allow you to ride longer, go ahead. For me personally, I prefer a moderate clutch pull because it gives me that feedback that I need. With really light clutches, I have a really hard time feeling where the clutch is at in the engagement. With a moderate to even heavy clutch pull, it gives me more resistance. I can feel the pull in the clutch and it allows me to address those finer adjustments with a little bit more accuracy. I like a moderate clutch pull and stiffness. Another way to describe really light clutch pulls is sometimes they can feel either on or off. And it's really hard to get that mid-range engagement feel that you need to really have connection with the motorcycle. I know that I experience that when I ride a motorcycle with a really light clutch. I always need to be in the middle. I never want the clutch all the way in or all the way out. When you're engaged with the motorcycle, it's always somewhere in the middle. Yet with a light clutch pull, It always feels on or off, and it causes me to struggle. Let's talk a little bit really fast about some of the common things that can happen when you're struggling with that connection. I know for me, if I'm fighting the clutch, it causes a whole long list of mistakes that occur. Namely, missing my line in corners, blowing past turns is probably one of the biggest ones. If I don't have that accurate, good connection with the motorcycle, I don't trust where I'm placing my front tire, and often can find myself going a little bit outside of where I want to go. And once I start doing that, my arms pump up, I get frustrated. It's not good. Clutch connection is critical to performing at your best on off-road dirt bikes. Depending on which bike you ride, you may have coil springs inside the clutch. You may have those conical washers like the KTMs have. You can adjust these different types of springs to change the weight and pull of your clutch. Either way, the most important thing that I would encourage you as an off-road rider is to be aware of really light clutches. This may not be the direction you want to go if you're pursuing connection with the motorcycle. Tip number 5 is to use the clutch. The clutch is a tool. It's a control component on your motorcycle, and it is there to have manual control over the motorcycle. Now, depending on where you're at in your clutch use history, you may be a clutch abuser. Maybe you don't want to take my advice. However, in my experience educating off-road riders, I would encourage you to use the clutch. Use it to have connection with the motorcycle. Use it to improve your ability to navigate any type of obstacle, and really always have that pulse. Again, the clutch is a tool. It's a control component, and it's there not just for shifting and not just going from a standstill to moving. It's there to provide connection and allow you to modulate the RPMs, to navigate the terrain, always have traction and balance, and go faster. Thanks for tuning in to the Ride with the Knights YouTube channel today. Please subscribe if you like this type of content. We're almost to 50,000 subscribers, and we would love to continue sharing our experience, our riding experience with you. Take advantage of our President's Day sale. Head over to ridewiththeknights.com. We will see you inside the course.